Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be doing a brief rundown of the Microtech MSI or Microtech Standard Issue. This is going to be the short version, and then later I will release a more detailed, longer version for those of you that care about this knife in particular. But to start, very big knife, in my opinion, comparable to the Benchmade Adamas series, which again, very beefy, big folding knife. Here's size next to the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, another super common knife a lot of people know about. So a little bit bigger, but roughly similar in size. So again, a lot bigger than it looks in the pictures online, bigger than I expected, just so you are aware before purchasing. I elected to get the serrated edge because I do a lot of outdoor work, and I found it to be very helpful to use a serrated edge when cutting branches and things like that with it. So serrated edge, super helpful. Came extremely sharp out of the box. Very pleased with that. Microtech always seems to have extremely sharp knives out of the box. But getting into the actual details of the knife, uses a ram lock system, which is Microtech's new entry into the crossbar market, using a coil spring that you can kind of see in there versus Benchmade's Omega springs, like this 940 Osborne right here, where the Omega springs are kind of inside the frame, and they're more prone to break than something like a coil spring. So works very well. A little bit difficult to figure out how to open at first, just because the hole is a little odd. It's not as simple as the Spyderco hole, but very easy to figure out after a while. The weight on the blade is fantastic. You can hold it exactly level and it will shut, unlike some other Benchmade knives. This is the Polymer version. So they make a G10. I'm not sure if they make aluminum in the MSI, but they do have a G10 version that I'm aware of that is a little more robust, but can't really tell with the Polymer here that it is polymer because it is so rigid. Cannot flex these at all versus something like a Benchmade Bugout or another polymer frame knife. The steel liners do not go all the way through. They are, I'm not sure if you can see in there, but they go about halfway through. Again, you don't really need them because of this beefy backspacer right here. There, again, no flex at all in this scale. So if you're concerned at all about the polymer version, don't be. It's very robust, holds up to a lot, and again, no flex. The other thing that I kind of wanted to mention is the spine wax that you may have seen on YouTube where the ram lock is failing. I am not going to do them right now on the short version, but I will include them on the longer version. I will say, I did a couple, no issues at all with this thing. This is a December 2023 model, so I think they might have fixed the ram lock. It seems like, based on some of the videos I've been seeing online, the gap between, if you're looking at purchasing one of these, you can kind of tell by that gap between where the lock engages. I think on some of the older ones it engages a little farther back, so you can kind of look and get a gauge for that. But I also would recommend, if you're going to purchase a knife, make sure you can hold it in hand before you actually buy it if you're going to spend a lot of money on it. There's a lot of variation that comes in with some of these mass-produced knives, and being able to hold it and feel it in your hand is very important. First time I held this, it was way bigger than I anticipated. So I was a little off-put from purchasing it, along with some of the spine wax that I saw online and just some other general reviews that I'd seen. But super happy with this purchase. I've had no issues with it. I've used it a lot outside the past couple days. I've only had it for a few days, but used it a lot outside. You can't really tell. There's a little bit of dirt in the serrations. The serrations are a little hard to clean off, but it looks brand new still. The steel on it is Microtech's standard M390 that they've been using, M390 MK, which, if you are super into steels, that's the same as M390, just a little tweak specifically for Microtech. It's supposed to have better edge retention. Whether it does or not, I don't know, and I'm not sure if there are a lot of people that know, but I've had no issues with this steel. It's not dulled at all. I used it several hours over the past few days, and did not dull at all. So from that aspect, it's great. The only, I guess, complaints that I would have with this knife, or cons, when you're holding this without gloves on and you're getting a really tight grip, the polymer frame under here is a little bit sharp. And especially this jimping, not necessarily like the jimping is sharp, but if your hand kind of gets into the frame here, it is a little bit sharp. So I might actually take like some sandpaper or something and try to sand it down a little bit. Not that big of a deal if you're only using it for a little bit, but if you're holding it for hours and making hard cuts, it will cut into your hand a little bit. I wear gloves a lot, so it's not that big of a deal to me. But if you do not like to use gloves while using your knife, that might be something to look into. Again, just something that you can tell by holding it in your hand before you make the purchase. So another reason to do that. And finally, again, like I had kind of mentioned, it's a little weird to get used to this hole. Like compared to a Spyderco, right? You just have a simple hole. You can flick it with your thumb. You can ride it all the way up very easily. You know, it's well made. It's right there. You know exactly where to put your thumb. This type of hole, it was a little trickier at first to figure out. You kind of have to get the weight right. So once you do, it's very easy to open. It's actually easier, in my opinion, to kind of do the little reverse flick than it is to open with your thumb. But opens very well. The weight on the blade, like I mentioned before, is fantastic, and it will shut very easily. You can just swing it open kind of like that. Again, no issues with the ram lock. I know that's a very big concern for some people. It was a concern to me. Went in, held it, seemed robust, so I purchased it. Haven't had any issues. And it looked like when I was watching some of these videos and reviews of it, it looked like it was just a brief, like very light tap that would disengage the lock. So that was, a concern. I don't want to spend almost $200 on a knife where the lock could fail that easily. And I'm sure that has put a ton of people off. But I want you to know that I think they have fixed it and made some adjustments to it. It seems like the ram lock is a little more narrow. You can find videos on YouTube of people that have an older model, and the lock is a little wider here, and I don't think it engages as well. But sure, if you have one of those, you can just send it to Microtech, and they would happily fix it up for you, so I wouldn't worry about that. Pocket clip, it's all right. These screws make it a little hard. I wear jeans, a little hard to get it all the way into the jeans. You kind of have to push it in past the screws, so that's a little frustrating. But other than that, this thing is fantastic. Cuts very, very well, especially outside, just branches and smack it in the dirt to get roots and things like that. That's primarily what I've used it for so far, but I actually really, really like this thing. Did not at first upon holding it, went back, said, I'll give it a second try, realized it wasn't actually as bad as I thought. And I've fallen in love with it. So would recommend it. Absolutely. Just make sure you can hold it. It is deceivingly large. Here I have a Bugout right here with broken springs on it that I need to send in, but very, very large. You can see compared to the Bugout, like the blade is significantly bigger. Again, I don't think a lot of people have done this, but I compared it to the Adamas when I was getting it. It's very large, durable knife that you can beat up. It's a little lighter than the Adamas, but try to keep this short. A lot of information in a little bit of time. And again, I will try to put together a longer, more comprehensive review of this one if you are all interested. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.